All right, I confess, it's true what they say. I do keep trading card packs stored in my beard. Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you are having a great day. And in today's video, I'd like to sit back in the squeaky chair, relax, and have a little conversation with all of you guys about nostalgia, collectibles, and predicting the future. You see, earlier today, I had picked up one of these bad boys. The most recent Yu-Gi-Oh decks, the Chronicles decks. These are for the new Spirit Charmers anime, which I was unaware was a thing until very recently. But hey, I will literally always take any excuse to pick up more Yu-Gi-Oh decks because I don't know if I talk about this a whole lot on the channel, but I am actually extremely fond of the Yu-Gi-Oh decks as a product. It is, in fact, my favorite product to buy for myself for a few reasons. One, ever since I was a kid, I had very fond memories of playing with the starter deck Yugi and starter deck Kaiba decks, playing those against one another for a bit. That was like the only Yu-Gi-Oh I had access to, so I was a fan of the cartoon. I was really, really into trying to play the game, but back then it was kind of playground Yu-Gi-Oh was what it was, you know? And so after I quit Yu-Gi-Oh, I still had a fondness for those old decks. And there were several times that I went back and thought about just buying some old starter decks just to have for myself. Now, when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, not that long ago, just a few years ago, really, when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, buying and selling and collecting, the first thing I did was buy as many of the structure and starter decks that I could. And ever since I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, I have always bought at least one full display of pretty much every deck that's come out. I don't think I've missed any since getting back into the game. And, you know, part of it is just I really like the product line, but part of it is I like the fact that it is a nice self-contained gaming experience. You can just pick up two of these, one for you, one for your buddy, and just really have a good time with them. A lot of the times they're meta relevant. There's a lot of cool stuff going on them. But while I try to justify it with, oh, you know, it's a well-designed product and all that jazz, um, a huge part of that decision is really just the fact that I have a lot of fond memories of playing with the decks back when I was a kid. It wasn't just the Yu-Gi decks. It was uh, the original Red Eyes deck for Joey, the Pegasus deck, the structure deck Invincible Fortress, which is still to this day my favorite deck ever. I really like that one. It has Exod, Master of the Guard. It's a really cool monster. Um, yeah, and that nostalgia, that like those fond memories, they kind of dictate one of my buying habits because I really liked Yu-Gi-Oh decks as a kid. As an adult, I pick up every Yu-Gi-Oh deck I can just because I like the product line so much. And that's the thing, nostalgia, memories, especially good memories, things you remember from when you were a kid, they really will form a lot of your buying habits once you're an adult, once you have disposable income, once you are actually throwing money at the world of collectibles. And I think it's important to know that because there's something that people like to forget. Way too many people who are into investing in collectibles really tend to look at their own childhood as the only window of opportunity for collectibles in the future. But the thing about nostalgia, okay, the really important thing about nostalgia is that as time goes on, as time moves forward, nostalgia moves forward with it. You see, every new generation is growing up in a different time, a different era. There's going to be different fads. There's going to be different things that they grew up with that they have fond memories of. You know, kids in the 90s are not going to have the same experience as kids from the 80s or kids from the early 2000s. And that holds doubly true for kids in the 90s versus kids in the 2010s, right? What you experience growing up can be radically different from the previous and the following generations. And why do I think that's important to really understand and come to terms with in the world of collectibles? Well, it's because way too many people get caught up with the idea that the stuff that we grew up with, the stuff that is popular now, because the generation that is spending money now grew up with it, they really tend to get caught up on the idea that that will be the successful, popular thing forever. And it's true. There is a lot of there's a lot of franchises, a lot of IPs, and a lot of collectibles that are really popular right now that I do think legitimately have generational, uh, like a generational stronghold. They are going to, the kids are going to play it, and their kids are going to play it. Like Pokemon always sticks out to me as one of those multi-generational franchises. Every parent I know introduces their kids to Pokemon. And I have no doubt that when those kids grow up, they're going to go through the same phase as we did when I was a kid, where you were super into Pokemon for a bit, and then it was kind of cringy to be into Pokemon, and then you were super into Pokemon again. And when those kids are parents, they're going to introduce their kids to Pokemon. At least that's how I think it's going to go out. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I don't think I am. But while Pokemon, I think, is a multi generational franchise, and there's a lot of cars out today. While Pokemon, I think, is a multi generational franchise, I don't think every hobby is. I don't think every collectible is. There are plenty of things that I grew up with that I loved as a kid that I know for a fact that if I tried introducing those to the younger generations, they just wouldn't care. Or most of them wouldn't care, I should say. I shouldn't say all of them, because I know that there's some people who believe that they were born in the wrong time, and if only they were born in the 80s, they could have all the Atari games they ever wanted. That's mean. I actually really like Atari. You know, what's a good example? So, like, when I was a kid, the Game Boy was all the rage. If you had a Game Boy, you were at the top of the hill. And nowadays, retro Game Boy collecting is super big, right? People love their Game Boys. All the games, all the variants of the Game Boy itself, the Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Advanced Micro, Color, all that jazz, the special variations. It's a hot thing to collect. And the games in the various conditions, do they have a working battery? Do they have the full sticker? Is it does it come with a complete in box? All that jazz. There's a lot of things that people care about when it comes to retro game collecting. But I can tell you right now, most of the next generation that's going to have spending money, they aren't going to care too much about Game Boy because they didn't grow up with it. A lot of the next generation grew up on gaming tablets, on smartphones and iPads and stuff like that. They're not going to care one lick about Game Boys. Game Boys are cool. Don't get me wrong. If I could, I would make sure that every child in America grew up with a Game Boy, but it's not my call, right? They're going to be interested in the things that they grew up with. And sure, a lot of that's going to be things that they can't actually own because you can't own a lot of the games you play on an iPad or whatever. But there's other things that they collect. Toys. What was that one thing? A fidget spinner. Fidget spinner was super popular for a bit. There's rare and collectible fidget spinners, commemorative fidget spinners, exclusive fidget spinners for certain stores. I think there's a Walmart brand fidget spinner now that I think about it. I think I saw one of those once. But what I'm trying to say here is, sure, what we like now, what's popular now, is kind of dictated by what the large spending group, are the current generation, a lot of millennials and younger Generation X and turn of millennium people, they're spending money now. A lot of people who were born in the year 2000, 2002, 2005, they're spending money right now because they are adults that start having their own income, right? And a lot of what they're buying is dictated by what was really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. Again, this is generalizing a lot. I understand that there's plenty of people older and younger that are spending money, but this is just generalizing quite a bit. So don't gang pile me in the comments down below going, oh, well, I'm a 50-year-old man and I still love me baseball cards. You know, there's comic books that I know for a fact someone 20 years older than me would absolutely love to have. Not Marvel, not DC, not any of that stuff. Like old, what was the one that I forget the name of it, but there's like this old like comic book about like a U.S. soldier, but it's not like Captain America or anything. It's just a generic U.S. soldier, and it's worth a lot of money. And I know that like older generations were super into it. I forget the name of it. Next time I'm at the local comic shop, I'll have to ask them about that because now I know I heard the name and I just can't remember what it was. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I know that there's things that came before me that were super popular and aren't now, and there's going to be things that come afterwards that are going to be super popular 10, 20 years from now that I'm not going to understand at all because I wasn't there. I wasn't a kid when they were popular. The thing about nostalgia is that nostalgia markets keep coming back for the generations that grew up with them, right? A lot of companies right now are trying to force it. You know, pop figurines and reproduction toys of things like Beast Wars and such. Old Power Ranger toys, I think, got reprints not too long ago. Companies like Disney keep trying to recapture the magic of their old franchises by re-releasing them as live-action things to try and capture some new nostalgia, even though that's a really stupid tactic, and nobody likes it. But I digress. Nostalgia, like it or not, is an easy way to make sales, and it's a very good way to invest in collectibles, buying what you think the next generation will like. But really what I'm trying to say in this video is you can't really predict the future. There are some things that you can apply some math to and say, hey, so many people like this now, and I think that in the future, so many people are still going to like it. And there are other things that you can just look at and go, this is really cool, and I like it, and I hope that the next generation, the next spending block likes it too, because otherwise I'm hosed. Vintage is a cool term that a lot of people ascribe value to just because it has the label vintage attached to it. But in reality, while vintage is cool, while vintage often means old and rare and hard to find in good condition, in reality, vintage is only one part of the equation. It has to have desire behind it, nostalgia behind it, a genuine sense of collectability and demand behind it before vintage actually means anything. There's loads of vintage things that are worthless, or worthless to the majority of people. But I think if the right amount of people were interested in a slightly vintage thing, even if it's not objectively one of the rarest vintage items ever, suddenly it's hyper in demand, and that's really cool. So, at the end of the day, if there's one thing you can take from this video, it's that there's a lot of cool things out there, a lot of cool things to collect. Card games, video games, manga, cars, and a lot of those are going to hold value for one generation. But others, and it's hard to predict what, will have multi-generational value. And that's the stuff that's going to be cool forever. Pokemon is one of them. I'm very confident, at least, that Pokemon's one of them. But you never know. You never know what the next generation is going to find cool. And I think the people who have the ability to kind of, not see the future necessarily, but kind of suss out what is successful now and therefore might be successful down the road, well, they have a buying opportunity and a potential money-making opportunity. Cool stuff. I can't predict the future, and I'm really bad at analyzing markets, so obviously that's not for me. I'm just going to be the same guy who buys and sells bulk cards until the end of time. But man, it's sobering to remind yourself that what you like is not necessarily going to be popular forever. And it's important to remember that popularity can be very fleeting. So I think I'm rambling at this point, but I hope I got my point across. A lot of cool stuff out there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Subscribing, I was informed, it does not actually do diddly squat. So if you're subscribed to the channel and you want to get updated on the content itself, hit the bell notification, because subscribing apparently is... Anyway, check out the Discord, check out the Patreon. Thank you guys so much for waiting until the end, and I'll see you guys next time.